Hey everyone, it's Mark Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the MuseScore Café. This is my regular series we do on Wednesdays where we talk about some aspect of making music using MuseScore. And the theme for today is we're going to be taking a look at the MuseScore 4.2 beta release, which it's well. Let me just get a couple things set up here so that I can be seeing the chat as I do this. There we go. Okay. So yes, beta release. This means it is available for testing. It is not, necessarily ready for real use yet, although, yeah, it pretty much is. There's bugs, but there's always bugs, right? So what I'm going to be doing is giving you a tour of some of the new things, which, I've been playing around with so that I can make sure that I can explain them to you. But also, if you've got questions, if you've tried it out, let me know. What we're going to want to do is just kind of see how things are going and what the new stuff is so you can be prepared for it. So all of that said, we're looking at it right now. So this is MuseScore 4.2 beta. Actually, this isn't even a beta. This is a nightly build. So let me give you a couple of terminology things that you should probably be aware of. So there's the actual MuseScore release, which right now is 4.1.1. And so that's the actual release. And by the way, thanks everyone for checking in the chat. Love to see who's here, and good to see you, Karen, back after a little while. Haven't seen you for a bit. The 4.1.1 is the current release. A beta release is like a new version that's about to come out, but they want to get some testing done. There's an in-house testing people. There's people that sit around that's basically spending their day testing. But realistically, you can only test so much that way. There's also these automatic tests and things, but realistically, you really find out if something works well when you put it out there for people to use. And so we really rely on people downloading beta versions to test. And then it's usually a few weeks or so of that, and then bugs that are reported during that period will generally be fixed, and then the thing is released, and then, over time, more bugs get reported and fixed. That's just the normal life cycle. So that's what a beta release is. So we're anticipating 4.2 coming out by the end of the year. I don't have a specific date for it. Maybe someone, Martin or someone else might, Bradley, the kind of manager folks in the MuseScore world, they might have a date in their head for it, but things can change. Oops, let me kill this. Okay. We're anticipating before the end of the year for 4.2 to come out. So the beta test period will last a few weeks. But in addition to the beta test, there's nightly builds, which come out every night that include every single bug fix that's available, every single new feature, whatever. So Dave's asking about if this is Braille or punch tape code. That would be interesting if it were punch tape code, but no, this is Braille. And this is not new. For 4.2, 4.1, MuseScore 4.1 has this Braille panel to display the Braille equivalent. You select a measure, it'll show you the Braille for that measure. However, what is new is Braille input. So that's one of the things I'm going to kind of demo today, but it's going to be a little awkward, as you'll see. So anyhow, what we're looking at here is a nightly build, meaning the beta was released like a week ago, and the nightly build has a few bug fixes since then. So let me first get you a link to where you're going to download this from. So this is on musescore.org. This is in the announcements forum. This is the announcement here, and this is the article that I'm going to be referring to here to make sure that I'm on track as far as talking about the features that I want to talk about and so forth. But right here is the download link, and I went through this in the article in the video that I posted and included in my newsletter. So some of you may have already checked it out, but I want to, for those of you who haven't, point out something that's new. Just in the whole download process, there are now additional versions. What we've always had a MSI file. This is a Windows installer. We've always had a DMG file, which is the installer for Mac. And for many years, we've had the app image, which is the installer for Linux, which then also works on Chromebooks. But this app image has always in the past only been for Intel-based Linux systems, and the Raspberry Pi is ARM-based. It's just a different processor, different type of hardware inside, as are a lot of Chromebooks. So now we have these experimental builds for ARM systems running Linux. So Pi systems, I think, are 32-bit. They'll probably want this version. I'm not actually sure about Raspberry Pi, but Chromebooks, there's both 32 and 64-bit Chromebooks that can use one of these two app images. Also, for those of you on Windows, instead of installing the MSI here, which will do a normal install, and you'll have MuseScore 4, 4.1.1, or whatever version you're currently using, and MuseScore 4 beta. I think it's called MuseScore 4 testing or something like that. It'll install them both side by side, but there's also now this portable version. So some of you may be familiar with portable apps. We used to support those years ago and then kind of stopped supporting them because Windows started, well, a lot of complicated things, but we've got them running again. So these portable versions you can download onto a flash drive and then take with you to a public library or whatever and run without installing. So the portable versions are kind of cool for Windows users. So anyhow, that's what all these files are. So that's where you can get these things. And again, they will be separate from your normal MuseScore installation. They shouldn't mess anything up, although I can't guarantee that's true on Mac because I don't have one to test with. So, so anyhow, that's where you get this thing from. So I'm going to go back now to the announcement, and I'm going to kind of run down these features, and then I'm going to show you the ones that I think are worth showing. But if someone sees something in here that you're especially interested in, let's take a look. So for guitar, there's support for alternate string tunings, and I think this is mostly going to be applicable to tablature, where if you want to say halfway through the tune, you want to detune your E string down to a D or whatever, this will allow the tablature system to be able to handle that, changing tuning mid-score, which never was possible before. Also, a whole new system for doing bends and customizing their playback. And I played around with it some, and I'm still wrapping my head around how it works, but it's designed to be more sophisticated than the system that used to exist and to better represent how it's actually done in published music. Parts. The stuff having to do with synchronization between score and parts, like what thing, if you add something to a score, does it also show up in the part? If you change something in the score, does it also change in the part, and vice versa? This is becoming more flexible. I'm going to spend a bit of time on that one. Harp pedal diagrams, you're going to see that glissandos now will, or glissandi, will automatically reflect your harp pedal diagram. So if you set your harp a particular way and you write a gliss, it's actually going to play it as per your pedal positions, which is really cool. And then there's a few improvements in engraving, how the arpeggio symbol displays, a couple new options for displaying how ties get displayed, and a few other things. It's not anything earth-shattering there. The 6-key Braille input is something I'm going to attempt to show you how it works, but there's still some issues that I haven't sorted out with how that works. But I'll show you at least what it's about for people who want to try inputting Braille music. This one, the next one here, is kind of a big one that doesn't get much billing here, but it was probably the single biggest pain point for people thinking about updating from MuseScore 3 to MuseScore 4 last year. Was MuseScore 4 had lost the ability to choose individual sounds within a sound font. So, for instance, the basic sound font in MuseScore has like several different pianos, an upright piano, a grand piano, etc. And there was no way to select which of those piano sounds got used. Or there were like a couple different violin sounds, and then there was slow strings and various different variations on sounds, and there was and all sorts of different electric guitar sounds, and there was no way to easily choose between them. Now there is, and it's better than it was at MuseScore 3, so we're going to get to see that. A few other things. I'm just going to run down the list and then again go back and show you the things that I think are most worth showing. Some of you are probably familiar with Music XML, which is a format for exporting and importing scores between programs, like transferring things between Sibelius and MuseScore. Music XML is for that. There's sort of a related format called MEI, which is similar to Music XML in a lot of ways. And I don't fully understand the differences myself. But what I would say is Music XML is optimized for that purpose, exchanging information between programs, including capturing details of formatting and stuff that it doesn't necessarily do very well, but at least tries to do things like that. Whereas the MEI format is supposed to be a higher level format to capture what's musically important about a score. In it, so if you export to MEI and then import in MEI, you'll probably lose more of the appearance of your score than with Music XML, but it's designed to be something that, like, people who do research and they're like trying to analyze all of Bach's fugues to see how often did he use the interval of a minor seventh melodically or whatever. It's a format that is designed to facilitate that type of research by capturing the right data. I don't know. That's my very uninformed description. So it's designed to be more about capturing musical elements than formatting and so forth. And then there's another one that's going to be important for some people, at least, and that's microtonal accidentals, quarter sharps, half sharps, all these different notes in the cracks between the keys on the piano. There's been accidentals for those on the palette for a long time, but they've never affected playback. You'd have to go into properties on the note and tweak the tuning. Now they will actually work. So by all means, Dave, feel free to fill us in here, because I'm not going to try to derail this by talking about MEI, because that's going to be one of the things I probably won't focus on here. If it turns out to be an important topic, I'll probably cover it in another session. Steinar, I do think MEI is based on an XML type of format with, that type of syntax, but, I don't know. So you all can look it up and let me know. So yeah, playback of microtonal accidentals will be there. And here's another one that I have no way of verifying, because I don't have problems with this, but I know that some people have experienced issues in MuseScore 4 where when you, especially with MIDI, you press a key and it takes longer than you expect to actually see the note appear, or the note appears instantly, but you don't hear it until later. I would say it's still not 100% understood why certain systems have problems with that, but they've done a lot of work to try to optimize things, and at least on some systems, it has definitely been shown to be better. So, I'm sorry if I'm not having a good connection. I don't think there's anything I can do about it at my end, so other people can let me know if you're having problems, or if it's maybe just a problem on your end, Allison. I'd be curious to know. All right, so what I want to do is show you some of these things. So I'm going to start with, I think, the parts thing, because I can show you that using my Café score here. So this is my MuseScore Café score. And as you see, in other words, the theme music. And so, for instance, here is, let me find something that I think would be an interesting. Okay, look at what's going on right here. We've got some notes, we've got dynamics underneath them, and because of the positioning of these things, it's kind of needing to add some extra space between the score and the between this staff and that staff. And MuseScore has always in the past tried to figure out which changes you make to a score should affect a part and which shouldn't. But for instance, if this is the alto sax part. Let's look at the alto sax part. So here's the alto sax part. If in the score I change, just drag that F, say, just drag it off to the side a little bit here. So now it's even with that bar line. Does it affect the part? And you'll see that yes, it does, right? MuseScore by default is now making some adjustments that you make reflect. And that didn't used to be the case. It used to be the case that MuseScore would assume you might not. want it to affect the part. And in this case, I don't want it to affect the part, right? There was no reason to have to make that adjustment in the part. It only made sense to make in the score to try to like save a little space. I could similarly like drag that whole hairpin upwards and, or do whatever else I want to try to save a little space here. And those adjustments would only make sense in the score, not in the part. So in the past, MuseScore would be conservative and say, you know what, any adjustment you make to the score, to positions like that, I'm just not going to do in the part. If you do want it in the part, you'll have to do it twice. Well, now what we'll see is, let's take a look at this. So now, as you saw, as I adjusted that F here and dragged it around, it did affect the part. If I don't want it to, I can select that thing, and now you're going to see these new settings down here in the lower left. And this tells you what gets synchronized. And it's saying that the position is being synchronized. Well, if I turn that off, now it is not synchronized. And now I can drag this thing and move it somewhere else just for the part. And if I then go back to the score, we'll see it hasn't moved in the score. So there's going to be, and similarly, you can select this thing, and I guess those settings only actually appear in the part. I wasn't aware of that. I was thinking I had seen them in the score, but I guess you only see them when viewing a part. That's interesting. So that's the position, but also the text. Like, okay, this is like a weird example, but imagine that you've got an ensemble and one of the people in the ensemble speaks a different language than everyone else. So the word swing, someone tell me the word for swing in another language, please. The word for swing in some other language. I know we got some German speakers here, I think. So tell me the word for swing in another language. And please don't let it be schwing. It's spelled the same way. What if normally, if you take some text and change this to say swinging 16ths, then that change is made in the part. But if I change it in the part and say, no, let's just say sw 16ths. If I change it in the part, it changes in the score also. Well, what if you want just the alto saxophonist to see it in German or whatever other language? Then I'm going to turn off the text synchronization and change this to, all right, I'll make it be schwing, spelt with a CH, even though I'm quite sure that's not it. But now we'll have the alto part saying schwing, but the score still just says SW. Everyone else's parts still says FW and SW. So this is a new facility then where you can change things. Or what if, you just want this marking to be bigger? Well, if I change Balancois, something like, see, I wish I could pronounce French. I really do. But let me make that change. BALANCOIRE. There we go. So yeah, now that's in French, and everyone else still sees the other version. And still, if I change this back to the word swing in the score, you'll see the trumpet still says swing, trombone says swing, and the alto sax gets to have it different. Similarly with formatting, like if I take that thing and increase the font size, like go from 12, make it 24 point, make it really huge, it's only happening in the part. So MuseScore is now allowing that, and that's been the case before, I guess, that formatting changes like that, property settings like that would only affect the score, only affect the part. Anyhow, this is all new stuff to play with here, right? So so the default is now going to be changes in the score affect the part. Changes in the part do not affect the score. It used to be the same. It used to not matter. If you made a change to the score or the part, most changes, a change either affected both or it didn't. In other words, like changes to content would affect both. If you change the spelling of a word, it would affect both. Changes to position would only affect the one you are editing. The synchronization is now new. So anyhow, this is all new stuff, and I've just played around with it a little bit. And so, we'll learn more about it as we start using it more. But I wanted you to see that this is the kind of stuff that now exists, that is kind of new stuff. So there is now going to be more flexibility in that sort of thing, more flexibility in how you go about synchronizing things between score and part. Because it used to be you would need these ridiculous workarounds of adding two separate elements and making one of them invisible in the score and the other one invisible in the part, just so you could have them be different, or other craziness like that. Now, with these settings, these synchronization settings that appear while viewing the part, you can control a little more which changes affect which. So I don't know all the details, but I wanted to show you this. All right, let's move on to something else. And if there's more questions about this, I can attempt to find the answer, but I've showed you basically what I know. I don't know a lot about this. What I can tell you, by the way, is when I first started using MuseScore back in 2010, I remember, and they were just starting to work on the linked parts feature. That was something I had requested. We're going to need more control over this. We're going to need more control over this, and it never quite made the grade, never quite made it into the list of things. We all knew it was something we wanted to have happen, but no one ever got around to making it happen. And so I am very, very happy to see it now happen. All right, so Marla, check this out. I'm going to enter a half note C and a half note C, and I will turn the volume up so we can actually hear this thing. And I'm going to add an arpeggio, not an arpeggio, a gliss between them. Arpeggios and glissandi. Here's my gliss. Oops, let's actually select that first note, gliss. All right, listen to this. All right, so it just played a normal C major scale gliss. All right, now I'm going to add a pedal, harp pedal marking. And I guess I haven't, here's my harp palette. This is, just a workspace I've been fiddling with. Let's make this something, let's make it minor. Why not? Let's make it minor even though we're in a major key. Let's add an E flat, an A flat, and let's keep the B natural, make it be harmonic minor. Now let's listen to this playback. There you go. Finally, so the harp pedal diagram itself was new in 4.1, and it was great that it was an easy way to create these diagrams, and great in that if you try to enter a note like A, that you just said the pedal is set to A flat, the A now shows up colored. Apparently it's purple now. Oh no, it's just because it's selected, it's red. So the pedal feature, and then if I enter an A flat, it says, that one's okay, right? So the pedal feature, when it came with 4.1, allowed you to easily create these diagrams, and it would very nicely color the notes that were not playable given your pedal positions, but it didn't affect the playback on those arpeggios, and now it does. And, arpeggios, of course, are huge in the guitar world, so affecting the playback of them. And I didn't have to do anything special. I didn't have to select that arpeggio and come over here to properties, playback. There's no new thing in here to select between, ignoring harp pedal and not ignoring. It just does it by default. So there you go. That's a nice new thing there. All right, the gliss froze the glass. Wow. Okay, so let's return now to the list of new features. So those were parts, harp pedal. Let's turn our attention to the mixer thing. All right, so I want to show you a few things here. I'm gonna actually let's add a guitar to this score because I'm gonna need guitar soon enough anyhow. I'll add an acoustic guitar. I'll add an electric guitar. And I'll add a bass tablature. There we go. So the reason I'm doing this is I just want to show you the thing with the tuning. So let's take this bass. What was I going to do first? I was going to do something else first. I was going to, mixer. Yeah. Let me play this electric guitar right now. We'll add some notes. And it plays with some sort of twangy electric guitar sound. Let's say, I want an electric guitar, but not that electric guitar. There's in MuseScore 4, there has long been under the guitar palette things you can add here that say distort, overdrive, and under more there were some others, harmonics, jazz tone, normal, right? And these were just things you could put into your score that would actually change the sound. But that's not how people were used to changing the sound, and it's limited because then you couldn't say make the guitar sound like a flute or whatever. So now it's going to be possible to open the mixer, and for that electric guitar, when I choose sounds, you'll see under sound fonts, now there's this little arrow pointing here. So MS Basic here is very nicely organized, right? And it's organized in an order that's meant to reflect your score order. It took me a while to figure this out, but it's got woodwinds on top, then brass, then voice, then percussion, and then strings, right? So it's, or at least some percussion. So it's designed to reflect score ordering. So now we can see all the different guitar sounds that exist, and I can select one. So if I want I don't know which sound that was. Was that clean guitar? Let's find out. I'm going to change to clean guitar. Yeah, I think that was the one that was already there. But you'll see I can select instead jazz guitar. And it's a different, really twangy, annoying sound. How about funk guitar? It's a heavier plunk on that, right? So anyhow, you can select all the different sounds within the sound font. That was always true in MuseScore 3, and it was lost in MuseScore 4, Hawaiian guitar. Yeah, that's just a different sound. They're all just variations, right? So, but you could also say, hey, I do want that thing to sound like a flute. So let's come over here under pipe and select flute. And now you've got your electric guitar sounding like a flute, right? So you can finally select all the sounds within sound fonts. Now, here's the other thing about that. Notice the top of the list says choose automatically. MuseScore knows guitar is normally at a certain place within a sound font. And so if you just say choose automatically, it goes back to the original twangy sound. But that will also allow it to choose automatically within other sound fonts. Like here's one called General User that is organized the same way. It's called General because it follows the General MIDI standard. And so if I choose automatically here, then it's going to choose the corresponding guitar sound in that sound font. In theory, it would. There we go. Took a moment to load it, I guess. So for any sound font that follows the general MIDI standard, that choose automatically option will just choose the right sound from it. Now, on the other hand, there's some sound fonts that are just not organized in that way. Like this one here, Windows GM. I don't even know where it came from. It's not organized in the standard MIDI way. So I would have to choose the sound based on just how it's defined internally, which has to do with these bank numbers. And I can see that the guitar sounds are in here in bank 1. So here is a funk guitar in bank 1 on that Windows. So anyhow, this now allows you to select sounds. I don't think it certainly, it doesn't change. I mean, this is, if you want to see what sound is selected, just look at the top there. Notice it's saying funk guitar now. It doesn't just say the name of the sound. But the mixer isn't designed to show you sound names. It's designed to show you instrument names, right? The name of that instrument is electric guitar. So that's what shows up down here, the instrument name. Now, it's unfortunately the case that even if you rename that instrument from electric guitar to, say, just elect. it changes it in the score, but does not change it on the mixer. This is something they're still working on, like how they want to provide the ability to relabel things. So unfortunately, that is not changed. So that's basically not changed. Normally, though, if it's a significant change, if you're changing the sound in a significant way, you should just change instruments. Like when I changed from guitar to flute, don't do that. Change the instrument. Actually use replace instrument here and say, hey, I don't want a guitar anymore. I want a flute. Change it to flute. And now it does reflect to flute. So if you're literally changing the instrument from one thing like a guitar to another one like the flute, then it does reflect if you do it correctly, which is using the instruments panel. All right, so let's close the mixer down and let's make some other changes here now. So I mentioned bends and string tuning. Well, let's do bends first. I don't know the bend system used in the guitar world, so I'm just kind of winging it here, but I'm going to enter a C. Actually, I'm going to enter an E. No, I'm going to enter a C so I can bend either way. I enter a C. Let's make it let's make it a half note. And I'm going to select that C, and I'm going to come over to the palettes. And in the guitar palette, notice now we have these various symbols here. What is that P? Oh, that's a guitar fingering. Okay. I wonder if I accidentally rearranged this palette. Let me reset it. If you've never seen that, reset palette. Yes. There we go. Yeah, I must have accidentally dragged something around in there. So these are these new symbols for bends that are predefined. Allison, when you say does it only work in MS Basic, which it do you mean? I guess I'm wondering. The selecting sounds has always been possible in MuseSounds, right? If I go here to that flute thing there and I go to MuseSounds, it's always been the case that I can select a harp or all the different choir instruments or the different woodwind instruments, right? All that stuff has always been possible in MuseSounds. So I guess I'm not sure what else, but maybe you meant, yeah, I'm not sure what you meant. So you can go ahead and let me know. But let's take a look then at this guitar here, and I'm going to try these different bends. So standard bend. Watch what happens when I click this. It actually adds in the note you're bending to. So if I play this thing, let's listen. Right, it plays the actual bend and it notates it. It automatically added the right ending pitch. Now, if that's not the bend that you want, I just changed the pitch of that note it added. And now I get a half step bend. Or if you want a bigger bend, a whole major third of a bend, you can just change the pitch there. So this sort of crooked line to indicate bends, this is sort of becoming the modern standard in the guitar tablature world for how to notate bends. There's a lot of different systems that exist, but this is the system that most other programs are moving towards. So anyhow, that does that job. There's also, let me enter another C. There's also this guy here, which is the grace note bend. Listen to what this one does. It just ring, and again, I can change that pitch to bend further down. Right, so that just is a quicker bend. And then there's also this bend coming out. Let's add a D and stick on this guy here. And it just adds a little bend going out of it. Then for any of these bends, you can also select them and go to the properties panel and play with this graph that looks something like what the graph looked like in MuseScore 3. But I don't understand it. So this is one that some of you who play the guitar or who read guitar music more often and have a better understanding of, oh, look at that. That's letting me change the pitch. Oh, so I can create my, oh, look at that. I just created a bend that was 2 1/4 steps, and it actually automatically put in the quarter sharp here, or half sharp. I don't know what you call that thing. I guess it's called a quarter tone sharp. So it automatically reflected that. So anyhow, that's a thing. Now, difference between a bend, a slur, and a gliss. That is an excellent question that I'm not the best person to answer. I can tell you that a slur is a general term that can apply to a lot of different instruments. And on most instruments, it doesn't imply a bend at all, right? It just implies, like on a wind instrument, not tonguing. Piano, it means play smoothly in some vague, unspecified way. On violin, it means take them within the same bow. On guitar, a slur is often used to mean slide your finger from one string to the next. I mean, from one fret to the next. A slide on guitar could indicate that you're doing that with an actual glass slide on your finger. So it does bend the pitch there. But a bend means pulling on the string to stretch it out to change its pitch. So do bends ever go down? Well, if you think about that aspect that I just said, the fact that you're pulling on the string to stretch it out, and that's how you're achieving the thing, it's impossible to stretch backwards. So there is no way for a guitar to do that. There's no way for a guitar to bend down. It always bends up. Is there a way in MuseScore to fake that sound? Well, let's find out. So the answer is yes. MuseScore was happy to play it. It also colored it red to say, hey, I don't think you can do that. Right? It knows that guitars are not capable of bending down, but it will play it anyhow. So there you go. That's bends. So again, I'm not a guitar player. I don't read tablature, which is where this notation is used a lot. But that is now the new facility there. And again, there was in the properties panel, when you select the thing, you have this graph that somehow enables you to customize more stuff. And I still don't understand everything about how it works. The hold line, yeah, I don't know what any of this stuff is. So this is all stuff to learn more about as we go along. The next thing I want to show you is the string tuning thing. So for that, I need the tablature part here. So let's put in on my bass string, whoops, 0. The top string on did I add a 5-string bass? Apparently I added a 5-string bass. Huh, I didn't mean to, but I guess that pitch is a G. If I'd say, you know what, at some point within the score, I want to change the tuning, and let's have the guitar player retune, or the bass player retune right here, and he's going to retune that G string. Actually, let's do it with the bottom string. Let's scratch that, because it's the bass string that you normally would, if you're going to retune one string. Oh, wow, listen to that. That is a low string. So apparently this bass player needs the B. But then let's say he wants to change the tuning of that later on so that that low string is a C. There is now an element here on the palettes. If we go to the guitar palette, you'll see this guy here. This is the thing that you use, and then you tell it your custom string thing here, and you say, oh, string number 5, I want to show that, and say it's changing from B1 to C2. And apparently I have to re-enter the note. So I'm not sure exactly how that's working with the playback, because it sure sounds like that is, it sure sounds like that's still playing the B. No, it says it's playing a C. Do you believe it? Huh, maybe? I can't tell. Too low. So, oh yes, on Dean you can stretch and then stretch back down, and so presumably there's ways of doing that. I haven't played around with it enough to say. But that's what I definitely remember the MuseScore 3 tool, let you draw these curves that would go up and down and so forth, and I don't know how to do that. It looks like that graph thing should, in theory, allow it. It looks like it should let you put in extra points and do things here. I just don't know how that might actually work. if there's some magic combination of things to click that lets me draw lines. I don't know how that works yet because the people who developed it have not written the documentation for it yet. And then, once I understand how it works, then I will be able to demo it better. But at least I get to show you things, and if people want to play around with it, maybe you can teach me a little bit. All right. So anyhow, that tuning thing, you just saw that I'm not convinced if it really changed the pitch. So let me do this again. And this time I'm just going to put in different notes. Let's do this again. And this time I am going to use the top string. And then I will come over here and add back that tuning thing, but this time I'm going to say it's the top string that is changing from G3 to A3. Oh, and look at that. It respelt the notes. Oh, look at that. Look how clever. Look how clever this was. It knew that when I changed that string from, okay, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but check out what it did. I had entered a 0 on the top string, which was a G. But now that I've changed the tuning to A3 to A, that you can't play a G on the top string anymore. So it automatically moved that note down to the string below. That's pretty darn clever. So anyhow, that's pretty cool. So let's do this now. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change this now to a 4. No, a 5. Okay, so that 5 is now indicating a C, right? And if I change the tuning of this thing to A, notice those 5s have turned into 3s. So it kept the pitch the same, but it automatically updated the tablature to tell me which fret I need to play at. When that string was tuned to a G, 5th fret was going to give me a C. Now that top string is tuned to A, 3rd fret gives me the C. So it's automatically updating the tablature according to the string settings here. So that's another one of those new features. All right, so as far as the features that I knew I wanted to show, that's kind of, those are the ones that I was the most psyched to want to make sure that I showed. But I do mention the Braille, that I want to show how this works, except I don't get how it works. For me, it's not working on my Chromebook, but it is working a little bit on Windows. And so I'm not sure what the story is. I submitted a bug, but let me show you. Just, you're going to have to look at the tiny little thumbnail of me here. Actually, let me just kill my screen share for a second, and then I can play around with it a little more. So I'm going to kill my screen share. Stop sharing. There we go. All right, here's my Windows machine. And, oh, has to look at my face. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know how well you can really see this, and I can't really do a good job of it. But if I come over here and select Arrest, and then I tab into the Braille panel, which you have to have opened first. You have to open the Braille panel by going to Edit, Preferences, Braille, and then that will open the Braille panel. Then you press N. It puts you in Note Input mode, but a special version of Note Input mode that works using these 6 keys. And I wish I had a third hand right now, but F, D, and S correspond to Braille dots 1, 2, and 3. J, K, and L correspond to Braille dots 4, 5, and 6. So your index finger of each hand corresponds to the top dot of the cell. For anyone who knows Braille, this is a system that is used by actual physical Braille devices out there called the Perkins Brailler and other ones modeled after it that use this sort of 6-key system to type in Braille. So in principle, I can now type notes by entering their Braille. So if I type F, J, K, and hold them all down simultaneously and then release, in theory, that was going to give me the right Braille pattern. It was going to give me 1, 4, and 5, which should have been a C. The eighth note. No, I'm already saying I'm not remembering, but I've gotten it to work, and I've gotten it to not work. So I'm still not totally sure of the sequence here and what is exactly going on that makes it want to work for me sometimes and not sometimes. But in any case, that is the system that it is there. I have seen it work, but I just don't understand all the intricacies of it. But in any case, for anyone interested in Braille music, it is in theory, at least on Windows, going to be possible to enter it with a 6-key, just using your computer keyboard as if it was a Perkins Braille input device. And it doesn't support all of Braille music. Like, you can't type in an entire score, everything that way, but you can do all your note input. You can get all your notes in that way, including things like accidentals and triplets, and even multiple voices appears to be supported. I don't know exactly what it's going to do, how it's going to handle that, but it does look like there's support in the code, because I've been examining the code to sort of understand a little bit about how it works. And slurs looks like you can enter, and miscellaneous things. You can build chords. You can do a lot of the things you might need to do, octave signs, of course, and the things you would need for Braille music. It's going to understand them when you type in the appropriate combination of things. But yeah, that F, J, K, L should have just put in a quarter note, and it didn't, and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong at the moment, but it has to do, I think, with the specific sequence. So I click a note, then tab, then press N, and then F, J, K, L. Ha! That time it worked. There you went. So I probably got something a little off in the sequence, but that was it. I select place in the score, tab into the Braille panel, and then press F, J, K, L, press and hold them. So it's like you're pressing Shift A or something, but you're actually pressing 4 keys together and holding on to them, and then release them all. And that time it didn't work, right? So I still don't totally understand the system. So Braille music, yes, basically it's linear, right? You're going to read everything in rows, just like text, and so you'll see a note, a note, a note, a tempo marking, a note, etc. So it's going to be linear like that. Now, some things are separated out, so that like tempo markings, do they get aligned to themselves? Now I can't remember. So Dean, you're talking about an issue where a fermata on 2 different staves at 2 different beat locations does weird things with the playback. I honestly don't know. I haven't played with that at all. So I don't know the answer. I don't recall seeing anything about that. And it's not an issue that gets a lot of attention, because I don't like, it's not something that gets reported over and over again like some others that have been fixed. So I'm not too sure what the status of that is, to be honest. But yeah, I'll try to remember to look into that and try out one of those scores of yours. Which one, Dean? There was one particular score of yours that I could easily demonstrate it with, right? I'd like to. Or if you have a link to where the GitHub issue was. I know there was an issue on GitHub for it. All right, so let me move on to just a few other miscellaneous things here. So this engraving stuff, this isn't a huge deal, but the arpeggios across voices. So if you have, say, a chord split between voices, like you've got a C whole note in one voice, and then in another voice you've got a lower C, but it's not a whole note, it's quarter note. Oops, not an E there, but and those notes are showing up colored. Why? Because my pedal is set to E flat. Well, let's just fix that, because that's going to bug me. Let's go back to my harp diagram and put in a harp diagram, changing this all to naturals again. And so now MuseScore understands that that's playable. If you needed to be able to write an arpeggio symbol across all of those. We can add our arpeggio symbol and then click that bottom handle and use shift down, and it will extend it down to the bottom voice. So playback is still a little wonky with that, as far as I think it plays the outer notes first and then the inner notes or something, not quite right, but at least it will span them across the voices correctly. MEI is, as far as I know, just another option. Yeah, let's find out. Export MEI. There it is. So yes, you can export MEI. And I'm curious. I'm going to do that because I've never looked at an MEI file, and I'm going to export one right now. And let's call it test. Oops, not test there, test here. What I'm curious is if I can import that MEI file and what all this nonsense is going to look like if I import it. So it does look like it's available to import. So let's try to import it. I've never played with MEI in any way. I have low expectations. So as I might have expected, I get my notes, but it didn't know what to do with the bends, didn't know what to do. I'm surprised it didn't know what to do with the gliss, actually. It got the arpeggio here, but didn't preserve stretching it across the chords. So in any case, yeah, you can export it, you can import it, you will lose information. That's exactly what I expected to be the case. I think it's losing a little more than I would have expected, but in principle, it kept enough information in a somewhat human readable format. What the heck? Let's just look at the dang thing, because, you know, what else are we going to do? I'm going to go to that folder and open that file using a text editor and just see what it looks like. So it is kind of XML-ish, and it's just different than Music XML. It's, you know, it does have information about font sizes and so forth. It's just its own format that it has its own appeal for whatever reason, and someone else would have to, you know, I will read those things and read up a little more about it. But in any case, it's there. So what was the thing I was going to show you next? Oh, ties is the thing I was going to show you next. So let's take a look at my original score here. And I'm going to put in a tie between two chords. Let's put in, and I'm going to tie that to an eighth note. Now, notice what MuseScore does by default with these ties. It has placed some of them. Oh, let me get my chat back. Sorry. And Dean, you're probably right about the you're probably right about the how the arpeggio actually gets played and all. And of course, the notes do get strummed with or without that symbol. So harp was probably not the best example, but the same is true on piano, right? That symbol gets used on piano. So notice what MuseScore does by default with the ties. It figures out that some of the ties, like this lowest note here, can go outside, like connecting the midpoints of the note heads. Some of them need to be inside, because if this tried to connect to the note head, it would cross the stem. But this guy here probably could have gone there, right? This one here is connecting to the to the middle of the second note, but not that note. Anyhow, it's doing intelligent things by default. But if you don't like what it's doing by default, you can tell it, hey, I want this guy not to try to stretch there. I want it to be interior only. Same with this one. Say, I want it to be interior only. And then all your ties will match, if that makes you happy. What happens if I set it to exterior? Well, it's still not going to cross the stem. But will it let me extend this one? No, it won't, because it thinks that it's not going to work. So in any case, that's available for when you want it. And presumably it works with single notes too, not just chords. Let's find out. Let's put in a tie and select it. interior, exterior. Yep. So you can choose between two basic positions for the tie rather than have to like drag it and eyeball things and so forth. So that's one of the small new things available there. Looking back at the list, again, I don't think there's anything really. Oh, microtonal accidentals. We already sort of saw one when I did the guitar bend, but let's just see one for real. Let's do it on the guitar so I can hear it a little better. I'm going to take this C here, and I'm just going to add in under the accidentals palette, under more. These are all of the microtonal accidentals. By the way, I have to tell you something really crazy, silly about this stuff that some of you may have already heard before, but it's fun. This is the 3/4 tone sharp. Let's listen to that one now. Oops, let me solo that staff. There you go. That was a 3/4 tone sharp. So for people who are doing microtonal music of any kind, then that is going to be a welcome feature. Or when I say microtonal that actually involves those sorts of partial, microtonal accidentals. I know there's microtonal music that just means you're tuning the standard pitches differently, but we're talking about that kind of thing where you're actually using these different accidentals. So here's the random fact about these accidentals. Notice that some of these have people's names associated with it. This is Wishnergradsky, and there's different systems for how these accidentals get labeled, and different people have come up with these different systems for adding and for categorizing these accidentals according to what exactly they do. Well, one of the people who is, I'm looking to see if his name actually appears in here, but I don't think it does. But he did some of the work on this. There's a guy who did some of the work on these accidentals, on getting them incorporated into MuseScore in the first place before there was any feedback. He's a big name in the microtonal music world, relatively big name, and here is his name. His name is, there you go, Mark Sabat. M-A-R-C, like mine, S-A-B-A-T, like my name, but just without the Ella. So there is a Mark Sabatella and a Mark Sabat who have both contributed to MuseScore. What are the odds of that? Yeah, and I actually first encountered this guy like 30 years ago, before MuseScore was a thing. So microtonal key signatures are definitely a thing. I don't know, what sort of playback support there is for those. But if I come over here to the key signatures palette and go to more, and then say create key signature, there are all them microtonal accidentals. So you're more than welcome to create some sort of crazy looking microtonal key signature, and create that thing and add it to your palette, and then from there add it to the score. I have no idea what that thing actually does. Yeah, I don't see or hear any evidence that the microtonal accidentals in the key signature had any particular effect. But if you want it, you can have it. There you go. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to show you there. If I missed any sort of questions from anyone, let me know and I can answer them real quick here. But other than that, by all means, go check it out, install it, and play around with any of those things if you want, because we would love more people testing things and reporting any problems you find. And if you need my help reporting a bug, I'm happy to do that. So there you go. All that said, let's come back and hear some music. Valenquois 16th. There we go. Notice that fall sounds a little different. That's because it's using the new bend system. I haven't played around with that yet to see if there's some other way I can tweak it. So MuseScore 4.2 beta available already. Came out a few days ago, sometime last week, while I was kind of on Thanksgiving break. Hope everyone had a good break if you celebrate Thanksgiving or just had a good week anyhow. The actual 4.2 release is expected by the end of the year. Tomorrow, we'll be doing the Music Masterclass as per normal, and we'll be looking at what I call common idioms, combinations of chords like phrases a couple measures long, things like, if you think about the English language, we say good morning. And, what does that really mean? Well, it means it's have a good morning, or, this was a whole thing in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, I forget which, where Gandalf and one of the hobbits discuss what does good morning actually mean, like literally mean, but it's an expression, right? And you could easily say how's it going and mean kind of the same thing. Well, idioms, there's harmonic idioms that work the same way, phrases that they just sort of work interchangeably. And yes, you can break them down grammatically why they work, but you can also just take them as ready-made things, and that's what we're going to be looking at tomorrow, are some of these idioms and how you can swap them out between pieces and come up with some interesting harmonizations that way. So hope to see everyone soon, and take care. Have a great day, great week. Bye.